Welcome back to the Estate Expectations Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Pickle. Today we are going to move into part 2 of last week's episode called Strength, Hope, and Unexpected Turns, a chat with Dr. D. James Pickle. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you continue to listen. And I do want to say that if you have any questions about estate planning and you're curious about the steps that you need to take to prepare your estate plan, we have a great free resource called the Mindful Estate Planning Workbook. And the workbook is designed to help you navigate all of the frequently asked questions and concerns that you have about preparing for your last wishes and creating generational wealth. You can grab it at our website, themindfulcounsel.com/estate-plan-connect, and we will absolutely leave that link in the show notes. And we will also leave a link to Dr. James Pickle's Substack blog. It's a great blog all about health and wellness. And so we also want you to take a look at the American Kidney Foundation's website. If you have any more questions or you're curious about kidney donors or kidney donation and perhaps leaving behind instructions to leave your organs to someone who might be in need through a healthcare power of attorney. All of that information will be in our show notes. And let's get started with part 2. But you finally was released from the hospital, and then you did have to do dialysis at a clinic. For how long were you doing dialysis outside of the home?
Oh, it was probably about a year.
A year.
Yeah. So as soon as you get into a dialysis center and everything, they start chatting with you about what the long-term solution is. Mm-hmm. What are you looking at long-term? And so the first thing is that they put you on the kidney transplant list, where you basically have to go through a series of tests and everything with one of the local hospitals to see if you qualify for a transplant. But in the time that you're waiting, and that can take well over 6 months before they even give you a phone call, you're doing dialysis, and you have a few different options. You can do dialysis at the center, but you can also do peritoneal dialysis, which is a situation where they fill your stomach cavity with a dialysate or a fluid and everything, and it basically filters out your blood through your peritoneum, and then they pull that fluid out and everything. A lot of people do that. You can do that from home. And so it gives you a little bit more freedom. You can also do home hemodialysis, which is the same kind of dialysis that they do in the center, but you can do it at home with a different machine. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be trained to do that. You have to go through courses and everything to do it. This particular center that I was at was getting certified to become a home hemodialysis training center. And they're like, I was coming in a couple of months and everything, and you'd be a perfect candidate for that, and that's what I wanted. And so I kept waiting and waiting for them to get approval to start doing this program. And then I found out that they hadn't even really applied to do the program. So they're making about, I think it was like $3,500 every treatment for dialysis from my insurance company. And when you do home hemodialysis, they don't make any money at all.
No.
Other than supplies.
Right.
And so they can do this for up to, I think it's a year and a half before your insurance stops paying for it and you go on to Medicare. And then they pay a whole lot less. So they don't want you to stop doing center dialysis until you've exhausted your insurance benefits.
Right. And you are now at home doing home dialysis.
Yep.
You did switch dialysis centers, and you found a much nicer clinic and some wonderful caretakers. And would you say that's true? I think so.
Yeah. So I found, Liz actually found it for me and everything. She made a few phone calls and everything and found a a clinic that had an operating home hemodialysis program that was already up and running. And so I was able to switch to them for traditional dialysis in center. And then I got into their first program, the next program that they had going on, to do home hemodialysis. So I was only there for a couple of weeks before the home hemo program started. I was, of course, one of their little star people.
Of course.
I typically it takes 24 days to go through the home hemodialysis program, and a lot of people take even more than that. They take like 36 days or so to really make sure that they're comfortable with doing it at home, and I did it in 12.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. But yeah, you being a medical professional, I'm sure, lends to that.
It has a lot of putting needles in yourself.
Well,
it has a lot to do with blood.
Yes.
And operating machines.
And operating machines.
So if you don't know how to do those type things, as far as your profession, then it takes a little bit more training in order to do this.
I'm in awe every time I see him set up his dialysis for the day. I call it his detox. Honey, when are you detoxing today? I just want to get our calendars straight, make sure we're on the same page. I will not call it dialysis. I call it his detox because he's cleansing his body because his kidneys can no longer do that. So, this is how I get through this. These are the ways I get through this. But I'm in awe every single day. He sits down, he inserts his needles, he gets the machine going, and he does this for 3 hours. And he works while he's, kicking back in the recliner. And I mean, he's taken one of the worst case scenarios that a person could ever imagine. He literally needs the dialysis machine to stay alive. And he's taken this and he's just made the absolute best of it. And I don't know that I could have done that. I don't know that I could, but I guess you don't know what you're capable of doing until you have to do it.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It sucks. But,
well, yes, to say the least.
And even with home hemodialysis, it only replaces about 15% of my kidneys.
Right.
So the toxic stew that's in my body is still significantly higher than anyone else's that has working kidneys.
Yes.
So I'm only at like 15% battery charge while everyone else is up there at 90 and 100.
Yeah.
But
so you've gone through a number of tests and interviews with your transplant team to become officially qualified, I guess, to be put on the kidney transplant list, correct?
So as of Thursday, this coming Thursday, I will know if I'm actually a transplant recipient or if I can even receive a transplant. So it takes 6 months before they'll even pick up the phone and call you for the transplant list. And the first round, I didn't agree with the transplant program and some of the requirements that they had. So I had to be transferred to a different hospital and a different transplant program. And it takes another close to 6 months for them to call you. And so no one wants to sit around and wait, but I mean, that's all I could do. There was nothing there. And then, they finally get around to calling you and they're like, okay, we want you to do this test and this test and this test before we'll even see you. So you've got to run around and get those tests taken care of and get the paperwork filled out and have it sent to them. And then no matter how quickly you get that done and everything, then they take their sweet time. And then they say, well, we want you to do a couple more tests. And, well, we want you to do a couple more tests. And every time that you do this, you are waiting at least a month to get that test scheduled. So I was over a month ago. They're like, I think we have everything and everything. We're going to take you in front of the transplant board, your case, and see if they'll approve you. And then they're like, oh, well, we want to do one more test. It's going to be a month before we can get you in there. So every time you get your hopes up that you're going to finally get on the list and you can start looking for a kidney, they just pull the rug out from underneath you.
Right. And let me just mention the gorgeous, glittery silver lining in all of this are the people, our friends and colleagues who have come forward have just sent emails, messages, text messages. What do I need to do? What do I need to do to see if I am a compatible donor for James? I'll tell you, if you don't know who your friends are, that'll show you. I don't know if I could step up the way that some of these people have stepped up. And the thing about the kidney donor program, the living donor, because there's a difference between the living donors and a deceased donor. And the living donor is typically what you would want, right? It's more optimal in terms of a successful kidney transplant.
So you have to get on the kidney transplant list, which basically says I'm healthy enough to get a kidney, and that they're willing to put a kidney in me, knowing that I will be a good steward of that kidney. And so that's what I'm going through right now,
Right.
is waiting for them to give me that approval. Regardless, there is a traditional kidney donor, which comes from deceased people. So you get in a car accident, you happen to be an organ donor, and you're on life support, but you're organically brain dead, then they can harvest your kidneys, your corneas, your heart, your lungs, and give those to people that are in need. And so I encourage everyone to be a donor on your driver's license and everything else to help people like me.
And in your healthcare power of attorney and your advanced healthcare directives, right?
But at the same time, that kidney from a deceased donor is only good for about 10 years on average. They're not the ideal way to do a kidney donor. The ideal way is from a living person, so it's what we call a living donor. And as most people know, you have 2 kidneys. You don't need 2 kidneys to stay alive. 1 kidney is more than enough. People that are kidney donors go on to run marathons and climb Mount Everest and do everything. But you have to be willing to donate and go through a very minor surgery. It's an arthroscopic or laparoscopic surgery to have your kidney removed so that it can be given to someone else. And those kidneys last about 20 years.
Yeah. And so we know that there are several people right now who are kind of just sitting on this list waiting for you to be approved so that they can move forward in their inquiry and in their testing to see if they are a compatible donor for you. But we don't know who they are. We're not told and given any of that information. It's an interesting...
Yeah, so there's a lot of confidentiality and a lot of dignity given to the donor as well as to myself. So the first thing that happens is I have a Facebook page called A Kidney for Dr. Pickle. You can go and there's all kinds of information on there about kidney donation, as well as more on my story. But what happens is you give a call to Banner Hospital at this point, transplant center, and they do a preliminary scan or screening over the phone. They ask you your blood type. They ask you a couple of other various questions about diabetes and your weight and things like that, because they don't want to take a kidney from someone who potentially needs that kidney later in the future. And if you have diabetes, you will probably have kidney issues and kidney failure. And so they don't necessarily want to take your kidney away from you that you're going to need. So you have to be very, very healthy. And if you pass that initial screening, they will do a blood test and everything to make sure that you're the proper blood type. I am type O. It doesn't matter if it's negative or positive, but it has to be the same blood type. Which happens to be the rarest blood type for organ donation as well. But they get to that point, and then the next series of tests and everything is based on after I have been approved to even receive a kidney. So we have a lot of people that are sitting there. They've gone through the proper blood type, and we're just waiting for me to get approved to see where the next steps go. But they keep them completely separate. They don't tell me we have 3 people, we have 6 people. They don't give me their names. They don't give me any information whatsoever. You're given an advocate who's not part of my kidney team when you are found to be a potential match. And that person is looking out for your best interest, and you can say, no, I don't want to donate at any time. And they don't tell me anything other than, well, it turns out they weren't a match.
Right.
So,
right. And if someone were interested, and I say this not only for James, obviously, I'm a little biased here that I want my husband to receive a kidney transplant as soon as possible. But if somebody were interested in learning more about donating a kidney, their kidney to you, or to anyone, what should they do? Is there a transplant team that they should reach out to? We can actually put all this information in the show notes too.
Yeah, so Winnie Cascone is the head transplants coordinator over at Banner Hospital here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so the first step is to just give her a phone call and say that I'm interested in looking into donation, and particularly the first thing she's going to ask is, do you have a particular donor in mind?
Yeah.
And so you would say David James Pickle, date of birth 10/5/76.
Yeah.
And so they know who they're trying to match you up with. And the interesting thing is that the first thing that they really ask is, so talk to me about your blood type and your health. And most people are turned away because they're not a type O. Maybe they're a type A or they're type AB. And so you have an option at that point. You can't be a direct donor to me, but they have a program which is a paired match donation. So I need a type O, you're a type A. We can go together and find another person that needs a type A kidney but has a type O donor. So you, as the type A donor, would give your kidney to this other person in need, and their donor would give their kidney to me.
Wow.
So that requires a little bit more finesse and a little bit more coordination. It takes a little bit longer to do, but anyone can be a donor with this paired match program that they have.
Fabulous.
So most people, however, want to be a direct donor.
They do, understandably so.
And so when they call and they're like, oh, he needs type O and I'm type A, they're like, okay, I don't want to give anymore because he's not going to get my kidney. Some stranger's going to get it. But the paired donation does make it possible that you can kind of do those type things.
Yeah.
Now, science has come up with ways that the blood type doesn't matter. They can basically take a kidney and they can filter it so that it's a universal donor kidney. And they've done this, but they're not doing it in practice yet. So once they figure out how to do something, it takes a decade or more before they finally get around to doing it in actual medicine.
Right.
So that's one thing. They actually just donated or did a transplant of a pig kidney into a human. That's going to be decades away. They're working on a bioidentical artificial kidney out of University of California, San Francisco. And they've been working on that, I think, for close to a decade now, and they're still not even in human trials. So that's going to take at least another 10 years, if not longer, to do. There's a lot of stuff that's out there, but it's just dragging. It's not anything that's going to revolutionize kidney donation in the next 5 years.
It's the one thing that I did not know, obviously, before all of this happened to you, is how prevalent kidney disease is in the world. It's a serious issue. There are a lot of people who are in, I think there's 5 stages of renal disease, correct? And so many people are already in the first and second stages of kidney disease. It's incredibly prevalent, and
I should probably know the numbers.
Well,
but it's I refuse to make this be the hill that I die on.
Yeah.
And I'm not a victim.
Yeah.
And so I don't self-identify as a person with kidney disease.
Yeah.
And so I don't go around spouting off my entire life about kidney disease.
Right.
8 million people have it or anything. Right. I'm a medical professional, and I focus on low back pain and mental health, physical activity, those types of things. And so I can spout off all kinds of information on that, but I don't want to get into just being all about kidney disease.
Yes, understandably so. Understandably so. So once again, I think we'll go ahead and put in the show notes the information to get in touch with the transplant team at Banner. If any of you find it upon your heart to inquire, to consider donating a kidney, or just to learn more about it, educate yourselves on how to prevent kidney disease. Have your labs done to see where you are currently. I know I do now. And my son, who's, how old is Cam now? He's going to be 22.
22.
He's labs all the time. More labs. Where are you? What are your numbers? We're not messing around, because there's a reason they call high blood pressure the silent but deadly killer. There are no symptoms. This man, as long as I've known him, his entire life, strong, healthy, has done all the right things. And I don't believe that the doctors have ever given you an answer as to why this happened. Why?
No. So unfortunately, it's the nephrologist that I had at the hospital was, for lack of a better term, had a very poor bedside manner. And he just came in and said, "Yeah, your kidneys are shot." No emotion to it or anything like that. And I had a lot of questions about so what does that mean? Does that mean that I have to have kidney replacement? Yeah, you're going to have a kidney replacement and everything. And that was it. And he couldn't really tell me why. They figure it was because of the high blood pressure and everything, and the stress that I had been going after was what was affecting it. But we don't even know if that's the truth.
No.
So there's no definitive reason as to why this happened. I've heard all kinds of rumors about COVID causing this and everything else. And it's like, the fact is it doesn't really matter how it happened. I've got it, and I have to deal with it now.
I tend to agree with that.
I can't go back in time and do something different than what I did.
Right. I don't know what you could have done. I don't know what you could have done differently.
No.
When my husband was upstairs in the hospital bed, occasionally I would have to dismiss myself to, grab some food, do some work. I was working, and the hospital had this great little Zen garden that I spent some time working in. But the first thing that I did when he was upstairs receiving that diagnosis, that cold-hearted bedside manner diagnosis, I was down in the Zen garden. Guess what I was doing? I was going through all of our files. I was going through our trust. I was going through our insurance policies. I was going through all of our assets to make sure the assets were aligned with the trust. Were all the insurance policies paid up to date? In a literal panic. Because my husband of, what were you, 47 years old at the time?
No,
48?
I'm not. I was like 45.
Oh, you're younger. God, I'm sorry. I don't even know how old I am most days. Anyway, my very young, strong, healthy husband was upstairs being told that he needed dialysis to survive. And so what I want to impress upon you all is, number one, don't get sick. Sometimes it's out of our control. But I think for the majority of us, it is well within our control to avoid illness, to eat right and exercise and stay healthy and see your doctor. And I'm not saying you need to see a traditional doctor, a health coach, somebody that can coach you and guide you on living a healthy lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be in a CrossFit gym snatching 120 pounds, which is what I used to do, but I cannot do anymore. Stop making it so difficult. Your health is everything. Your health is your wealth. And I've said that many times on this podcast. Without your health, you have no wealth. Make sure your estate planning documents are in order because, again, you think at 45 years old, you're sailing on through life, you're at the top of your career, you're at the top of your game, and then the next day you're in a hospital bed being told, again, you need a kidney transplant. You have a wife, you have a son in college. So it happens. It doesn't just happen to 80 and 90-year-olds. It happens to young people, to young adults. You need to have your planning in place. And yes, do please consider becoming an organ donor. And your estate planning attorney can help you with that. Your estate planning attorney can help you decide whether you want to include your preference for organ donation in your advanced healthcare directive. And why do you want to give it an organ? Do you want to give it for transplant for people like James? Do you want to give it for education? For all of the above? So I'm just really very grateful for you to come on this podcast today, because I want to impress upon people, obviously, how important it is to have their estate plan in place when the unimaginable happens. But I also wanted to get your story out there. And I also want people to see that you are, look at you. You're handsome, you're healthy looking, you're capable, you're not disabled. Although the government says you are, you're not.
So people that are looking to maybe change their health habits and everything after hearing my story, I do have a Substack.
Yes.
Called PT Confidential, and you can check that out as well. I do 6 blog posts a week talking about nutrition, talking about weight loss, talking about injury prevention, talking about fitness, and it's an interesting thing. I do 6 a week so that you have a little something to think about during the day to kind of keep you motivated towards your goals, if it's weight loss or whether it's going to the gym more frequently. So you can look at that. I'm still doing that. I'm still actively working and doing things.
Yes.
Even though I have to be on dialysis 3 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah, absolutely. It hasn't stopped you. Big surprise there. Big surprise. But I don't think I would want that. I don't think I would want you to just stop living your life.
Well, you have to have purpose.
Well, 100%.
And if you don't have purpose in your life, then you start getting very depressed.
Yeah, of course you do.
And so I've gone through situations where they've given me so many medications that I can't exercise.
Yeah.
When I had my central line, I couldn't shower for, what was that, almost like 8 months.
Ridiculous.
Until they put a fistula into my arm and everything, which once that healed up, I could actually shower again. So it's hard to exercise when you can't take a shower when you're done. And you're all sweaty and nasty and you have to sponge bath. And so I gained 50 pounds in the first year just because of inactivity, which is so out of my personality.
Yes.
But I needed to continue to have purpose.
Yes, absolutely. And you do. And you do. And so, again, we're going to add James's Substack to the show notes. We'll add the Facebook page. The Facebook page is really great. He shares a lot of informative articles and his own daily experience with living with chronic kidney disease on the Facebook page. And so I want to thank you so much for being here. I know it's not easy, but this story needs to be told. People need to hear it. And I hope everybody knows that they can get in touch with us if they want. We're open books, and we'd love to talk with you. And thanks again for tuning in to the Estate Expectations podcast.